Imagine a shadow falling over the warm, turquoise waters of the North Arabian Sea. It's not a cloud, and it's not a storm. It is the silhouette of the USS Abraham Lincoln, a nuclear-powered behemoth that carries more destructive power than most sovereign nations. As of late January 2026, this floating fortress has officially crossed the threshold of the most dangerous nautical miles on Earth. It has entered strike position. The moment the Lincoln's hull cut through that invisible boundary, the airwaves over Tehran and the coastal mountains of the Persian Gulf didn't just crackle, they exploded with activity. This is the Iran scramble. It is a high-stakes, multi-dimensional response that involves every level of the Iranian defense apparatus, from the supreme command in the capital to the isolated missile batteries hidden in the jagged cliffs of the Makran coast. The shocking reality of this encounter is that strike position is no longer a safe distance. In the 2026 theater of war, the traditional rules of naval engagement have been set on fire. This is a story of a silent, digital, and physical struggle where the first person to blink might lose everything. To understand the intensity of this moment, we have to look at the command and control C2 paradox of strike position. In the past, a US carrier could park off a coast and project power with almost total impunity. But in January 2026, the Lincoln is operating in a glass house. The shocking tactical shift is that Iran has built an integrated sensor web that makes the carrier's exact location known to every drone pilot and missile commander in the region. When the Lincoln enters strike position, it is essentially inviting 1,000 daggers to point at its heart. The US Navy calls it forward presence, but the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, views it as a target acquisition event. The C2 paradox is simple. To be effective, the carrier must be close, but to be close is to be vulnerable to a degree never seen in modern history. The vulnerability is not the ship's defensive systems. It's the fact that in 2026, the ocean provides no place to hide from a persistent networked enemy. This leads us to the digital scramble and the war for the spectrum. As the Lincoln moves into position, it isn't just launching F-35s, it is launching a massive electronic warfare surge. The carrier's EA-18G Growlers are pumping out billions of watts of jamming energy, trying to create a white noise shield that prevents Iran from getting a targeting lock. But the shocking Iranian counter-scramble is the use of passive geolocation arrays. Instead of trying to see the carrier with active radar, Iran is listening for the carrier's own electronic signature. Every time the Lincoln's crew uses a radio, every time a radar sweeps the horizon, and even the noise from the jammers themselves, creates a digital footprint that can be tracked. The shocking truth of 2026 is that the US Navy's greatest strength, its advanced electronics, is also its greatest liability. The digital scramble is a game of cat and mouse, where the cat is trying to find a mouse that is screaming at the top of its lungs. The vulnerability is not the power of the jamming. It's the fact that in a digital world, silence is the only true stealth. Now let's talk about the asymmetric shadow war in the Gulf. While the world watches the carrier, there is a shocking scramble happening in the shadows. The IRGC has activated its decentralized maritime doctrine. This means that instead of a central command directing the war, hundreds of small autonomous units have been given the green light to act on their own if the carrier enters a specific kill zone. This includes the scramble of Ghadir-class midget submarines. These are tiny diesel-electric vessels that are designed to sit on the seafloor, perfectly still, for days at a time. They don't need to hunt the carrier. They just need to wait for the carrier to sail over them. The shocking reality of January 2026 is that the Lincoln is sailing through a minefield of human will. Every fishing dhow, every cargo ship, and every small boat in the Gulf could be a scout or a suicide platform. This is the ambient threat, a scramble that uses the chaos of civilian traffic as a shield. The vulnerability is not the sonar's range. It's the fact that the enemy is indistinguishable from the background noise of the world. This brings us to the Missile City Scramble and the hypersonic threat. The most visible part of the Iran scramble is the movement of the missile cities. These are vast underground labyrinths carved into the mountains along the coast. In late January 2026, intelligence reports showed a massive surge in activity at these sites. The shocking weapon being scrambled is the Fateh-2 hypersonic missile. Unlike traditional ballistic missiles that follow a predictable arc, the Fateh-2 can maneuver at Mach 15. This means it can dance around the carrier's Aegis defense system, hitting the ship from an angle that the computers never expected. The shocking realization for the US Navy is that strike position might actually be a suicide position. If Iran has truly mastered hypersonic maneuverability, the $13 billion carrier is essentially a target that cannot be defended. The vulnerability is not the lack of interceptors, it's the fact that the shield is built for a war of the past, while the sword is from the future. Now consider the Hormuz leverage and the global hostage. Why does Iran scramble every time a carrier arrives? Because they know that the Lincoln is a global economic hostage. The Strait of Hormuz is the world's most critical energy choke point. 21 million barrels of oil flow through it every single day. The shocking reality of the strike position is that if the Lincoln fires a single shot, Iran will immediately close the strait. They don't need to sink the carrier to win. They just need to make the world's economy bleed. The scramble is a way for Iran to remind the US that they are holding the energy trigger. Every time the Lincoln moves closer, the price of oil jumps, and the global markets tremble. The strike position is a place where a military victory for the US would result in an economic catastrophe for the world. The vulnerability is not the US Navy's firepower. It's the fact that the protector of the seas is also the person most likely to cause their closure. Let's look at the internal Iranian calculus. Why is the scramble happening now, in January 2026? It's because the Iranian leadership is facing a shocking level of internal and external pressure. With a new aggressive administration in Washington and a stagnant economy at home, the IRGC feels it must project strength to survive. The scramble is a domestic performance. It is designed to show the Iranian people that their leaders are not afraid of the massive armada. But the shocking risk is that this performance can easily turn into a real war. If an IRGC commander on the coast interprets a US training exercise as a real attack, he might fire his missiles without waiting for permission from Tehran. The vulnerability is not the lack of command, it's the fact that the trigger is held by hundreds of different people who are all on high alert. Now let's talk about the drone swarm and the saturation scramble. One of the most shocking parts of the Iran scramble is the sheer number of Shahed and Mohajer drones being moved to the coast. These drones are cheap, slow, and easy to shoot down. So why are they a threat? The answer is saturation math. The Lincoln's destroyers carry a limited number of interceptor missiles. Each one costs millions of dollars. If Iran scrambles 500 cheap drones at once, the US Navy is forced to use its expensive missiles to shoot them down. The shocking truth is that once the destroyers are out of interceptors, the carrier is defenseless against the real threat, the hypersonic missiles. This is the saturation scramble, a war of attrition where the side with the cheapest weapons can bankrupt the side with the most expensive ones. The vulnerability is not the accuracy of the defense, it's the fact that the shield is too expensive to use in a long fight. This brings us to the regional domino effect. The scramble in Iran has triggered a shocking chain reaction across the Middle East. From Israel to Saudi Arabia, every military is on high alert. The shocking reality of the Lincoln strike position is that it has created a security vacuum. To protect the carrier, the US has pulled assets from other regions, leaving its allies vulnerable to proxy attacks. The scramble is not just about Iran and the US, it is about the fragmentation of the Middle East. Every country is now scrambling to ensure its own survival in a world where the US supercarrier, once the ultimate guarantor of stability, is now the primary source of tension. So why is this strike position and the subsequent scramble so shocking? Because it marks the end of the era of uncontested US naval dominance. It shows that a regional power, by using asymmetric technology and geographic advantages, can neutralize the world's most powerful navy without ever firing a shot. The scramble of Iranian missiles is the sound of a world that has fundamentally changed. It is a world where the big stick of America no longer deters, but instead provokes. The next time you see a headline about a carrier group entering the Persian Gulf, look past the impressive images of the F-35s. Think about the underground cities. Think about the silent submarines. Think about the scramble. Because in the strike position of 2026, the distance between a successful mission and a catastrophic defeat is no more than a few milliseconds. The time of the invincible fleet is over. The time of the high-stakes scramble has arrived. And in this new world, the most powerful city on Earth, the aircraft carrier, is only one shocking moment away from becoming a memory. The United States continues to send its carriers because it believes it must maintain order. Iran continues to scramble its missiles because it knows the order is already broken. The strike position is the place where the illusion of control meets the raw reality of modern warfare.